So, good day, and happy to be here again. And some of you know about my cataract surgery yesterday, and that seemed to have gone quite well. And I got one of my long time wishes, which is I was able to see the stars last night without using my glasses. So, at least with my left eye, and I'll probably have the. Sometimes I'm also kind of amazed when I look around with my new eye that how shiny things are and bright, and there's a wonderful feeling of vibrant stillness in everything. I see things when I'm just looking through my left eye, that everything seems so clear and also very still. There's a wonderful stillness. It kind of makes me want to, or it brings a stillness to me to see this way. And so to start, introduce or start this meditation, there's a kind of a teaching story of a school where on the wall in the classroom there's a sign that says, "In this school, we place the teachings on your heart." And so someone asked, "Why do you put the teachings on our hearts?" And the teacher said, we only put it on your hearts. Only life can put it in your hearts. We put it on your hearts, and when your heart breaks open, then they fall in. So this idea that to be receptive, or to have our hearts open, not necessarily only break open, but to open, to be receptive enough, open enough, transparent enough, wide enough, so that something can touch it deeply, something can fall into it. And one of those things that is awakened in that process as the life touches our deepest heart is a sense of care, a sense of kindness, goodwill, a sense of wanting to nurture and nourish. Because what's deep inside of us is both nourishing and nourishable. And this wonderful reciprocity, the very same place that can nourish the world, nourish ourselves, is also the place that can be nourished. And it can nourish itself, this wonderful reciprocity. And one of those qualities that come from this place is compassion. And as I've been saying, there's many different forms of compassion, different ways that different people experience it. So you have to, when someone teaches about compassion, you have to translate it into your own words, or own sense, your own experience. But a place of tenderness, that place that nourishes and is nourished. The place that wants to nourish, care for a young child or a kitten or even a plant. When I was a gardener in the monastery, I had very strong parental feelings for the plants in the garden. And I would walk around the garden when the morning work period began and just kind of gaze upon all the plants for quite a while, just go around and look at them, check them out as if they were kind of like my children, to see if they were all okay and how were they. And I had a kind of tender feeling inside this place of nourishing and being nourished. And so to feel this nourishing and being nourished, surprisingly enough, in the presence of suffering, in presence of knowing and the challenges that we have and other people have. Knowing perhaps that accompanying people, being a companion in suffering, in their challenges, is sometimes one of the greatest supports we can give someone as they want to find their own way through it. And a wonderful feeling of being available to help, wanting to help if the help is wanted, and this feeling of being open and available without a need to help, without forcing ourselves on other people to help them. Be available if the invitation is there, if it's clearly wanted. So all this points to a place inside, a sensibility, a feeling, an intention, an idea, an imagination, thoughts of goodwill and compassion. So taking a posture, assuming a posture, and as you assume a meditation posture, do it kindly and compassionately. This body of ours is where there's a lot of challenges. And to dip into our bodily experience with care and assume a posture for meditation that is right for you. And gently closing your eyes. And perhaps, if it's available to you, to connect to your way of being tender or nourishing or caring, whether it's a feeling or thoughts, an image. And with that sense of care or tenderness, to gently take a few long, slow, deep breaths, as if these breaths are the most important, valuable, caring things you can do. And exhaling a long, caring, relaxing breath, as if the exhale is emptying you of your difficulties, as if the exhale is connecting you more fully, solidly to your body here. And if it's comfortable for you, taking a deep breath in, exhaling a slow and long breath, and then lingering at the end of the out-breath, maybe releasing more fully. For a moment in the end of the out-breath, allow yourself just to be. Maybe you can even feel the physiological drive to care for yourself, That is, to begin breathing in again. The process of breathing is sustaining your life. It's a way in which your body cares for you. And then to let your breathing return to normal. And on the exhale, relax in different parts of your body. Release the holding. But as you relax to whatever degree you can, maybe do it with a generosity of caring, not forcing, not even expecting things to relax, but offering your body a chance to soften and relax, especially if you can do so with a caring attitude. And then simply being with your breathing. Perhaps with a feeling of relaxing or softening all around the inhale, all around the sensations of your body that come into play as you inhale. As if receiving those sensations. Around it is a field of softness, of caringness. And if, as you exhale, the sensations are returning to a place that invites, that's inviting the exhale, a place of tenderness, a place that is both nourished and nourishing. And to continue breathing. And maybe you're breathing with compassion, with care, a compassion which includes a feeling of generosity, not expectation, not anything required. A place of tenderness, a place of thoughts of well-wishing. as if the experience of the body breathing are like waves of compassion. The inhale is like waves washing up across the sand. The exhale, the waves returning to the ocean. Waves of compassion washing over you. Relaxing the thinking mind, quieting your thinking. Compassion, a place of inner nourishment, inner nourishing. You might very gently, as you exhale, say to yourself the word compassion or care or tenderness, both to let the thinking mind become quieter and to be reminded of this place within, to touch in again to this place within of compassion. Perhaps allowing a sense of generosity to come with the compassion. The generosity that allows you to do this just the way it is for you, how it works for you, without a should or needing to make it look like something. Just whatever way is easy for you to touch into your capacity for compassion, care. Saying the word compassion and saying it like you're dropping a pebble into a lake, middle of the lake. And the ripples, concentric ripples, radiate outward across the lake. So let your compassion be the pebble and dropping into your heart. And concentric circles of warmth, of care, radiate out from you, out into the world. Maybe with each breath, each exhale, dropping the pebble, compassion. Each inhale, the radiance spreads outward into the world. And as your compassion radiates beyond the edges of your body, beyond those edges of your body, your compassion is no longer about you. Compassion becomes free from self and self-concern. And appreciate that freedom of compassion that simply radiates in a way that's no longer about you. It's free of self. Just a radiance. and to feel perhaps how the radiance of compassion, that sense of warmth or goodness, caringness, that somehow spreads beyond the edges of the body, is nourishing for you, because it comes from a place that's both nourishing and nourished. And how beyond the edges of your body, it's not about you yourself. It's free of self. And how preoccupation with self diminishes this nourishing place of tenderness, of care. Compassion as it radiates beyond, out into the world, can be a form of freedom from self, freedom from self-rumination, self-preoccupation, freedom from self-criticism and self-belittlement. The simple generosity of compassion, especially compassion for others, is a freedom from what diminishes us with self-preoccupation. And to see if you can now turn your attention out into the world of people who struggle, who suffer. Maybe the people struggling with COVID-19. The people who are sick, some are dying. The medical staff and other caregivers. For those who have COVID. And to allow your radiance of goodwill, of tenderness, of care, of compassion spread out to all the people touched with COVID-19. And let your compassion touch them as well. As if all you need to do is to know them and know their suffering and challenges. Be a companion and an ally. Wishing them well. May all beings, all people who have COVID-19 and all people who are caring for those with COVID-19, may they be free of suffering. May they be free of fear. May they be free of any hostility whatsoever. May they receive the care, the best care available. And more so, may they receive the best love and care, compassion that we're able to offer each other as human beings. May all beings be free of suffering. May all beings be free of oppression. May all beings be free of hatred from others and from themselves. May all beings be at peace, at ease. May they be nourished by the goodness that exists in this world. So this is the last talk on compassion. And the Buddhist concept of karuna, the word that's often translated as compassion, in the early Buddhist tradition, the reference point for this karuna is meditation practice. Meditation where we become free of the hindrances, where we become free of clinging and hatred, where we become free of preoccupation. And with that, the free of obligation, free of idealism, free of all these things that keep us kind of locked in or limited or closed down or agitated. And so what is it that gets born out of that has to do with caring for the suffering of oneself and the suffering of the world? With that reference point, what is the flavor and the character of compassion that has a quality of freedom within it? And certainly many of us can have the experience of being touched in a compassionate way, in a caring way for others, and to feel in the very movement of compassion a kind of something opens up, something different than self-concern or the usual reference points for me and you and self and other operate. And I don't know if this story touches this for you, but it does for me. The story of, I don't know if it's a true story, but maybe that doesn't matter. It was in Washington, D.C. on a very beautiful spring day with some of the great trees flowering, beautiful white flowers and beautiful blue sky and crisp and clear air and kind of everyone kind of delighted by the freshness of it all. And a person who goes to work every day walks by a man who sits on the sidewalk begging with a cup, a blind man, hoping for some change, spare change. And on that day, the person who was walking by noticed that there was no money in the person's cup. And so the passerby asked, "Can I make a sign for you?" And the blind man said yes. So he wrote a sign and propped it up against the cup, and went on to work. And coming back at the end of the day, the man was still sitting there, and now there was money in the cup. And he stopped and said, "How's it going?" And the blind man said, "Oh, it's going great. I've never received so much before. What did you write on the sign?" And the passerby said, "I wrote, 'Today is a beautiful day, and I'm blind.'" And for some people, our sense of common humanity, our sense of the empathy and understanding of what that means, that here many people who have sight are really enjoying something special and unique and vibrant and alive, and something which is an uplifting, beautiful day. And a person who's blind maybe can smell the freshness of the day, but can't see the blue sky, the flowers, can't see. It touches something in us. And wanting to extend ourselves for such a person, to support such a person, to write a sign, to offer some support, money maybe. Something in about that movement is no longer about self. Especially if we're coming out of meditation and we're not so busy and self-preoccupied and caught up in ideas and thoughts what should be and shouldn't be. There's something that opens in us that, oh, of course, I feel for this person, or I have compassion, or I'm with this person. And that movement I would like to propose to care for this kind of situation, someone else like this. For it to be karuna, this coming out of, kind of like out of meditation or the similar places, that way is nourishing for the person that's offered to, and it's nourishing for the person who gives it. That nourishing and being nourished are the same thing. And to have that as the reference point for compassion. And so we're looking for that, or we're being careful if it's not that. If we don't feel nourished, then we're probably operating under obligation, duty, a big should, a kind of maybe even a harshness inside you. Gil, you're supposed to be compassionate. Better do it now, and otherwise you'll be, somehow a bad person. But to feel, to really recognize and know in oneself deeply what it's like to be nourished and nourishing. And that can be for oneself, but also in our relationship to the world around us. To be generous, and that be a kind of a nourishment for ourselves. To have goodwill, and have that be nourishing for ourselves. And to have compassion, and that be nourishing for ourselves. So this karuna then has a very close relationship to liberation or freedom in Buddhism. The more free we become in meditation or in other ways, the more we have a reference point for understanding the simplicity and the clarity, the beauty of compassion that helps us become happy. A certain kind of happiness. When happiness is not really the appropriate, or because the tragedies of the world are so big, there is our response to that tragedy. Maybe we don't feel happy, but there's a nourishment in it. There's a radiance of goodness that's there when we don't get caught up in the thoughts of horror or dismay or anger or agitation, or it lands on this place of self, like, oh, I have to do something and I'm confused and what should I do? It's simply this place that, today's a beautiful day and I'm blind. Oh, that something in us opens. Oh, let me offer something here. Let me share something with this person. So compassion practice, as I think Diana taught you yesterday, can be a formal meditation practice as well. So we don't leave the cultivation or our compassion to chance. We can actually cultivate it and develop and let it grow. And it's been one of the great gifts of my life, is to watch and develop my sense of compassion. I had no idea when I started meditation that it was such a fantastic thing to have compassion be awakened in me. So it's possible to do that intentionally and develop it. It's also then one of the great important parts of that is the way in which compassion both becomes a form of freedom, and it teaches us more about freedom. Freedom from self, freedom from clinging, freedom from hatred, freedom from sensual desires and comfort, freedom from our opinions and stories, freedom from self-preoccupation, self-attachment. And so this deeper we go with this meditation on compassion and being nourished by it, we're experiencing a nourishing alternative to the pursuit of sensual pleasure, a nourishing alternative to being caught in stories of whatever stories we have, opinions we have, an alternative to self-preoccupation. And it isn't that we let go of self-preoccupation and have nothing. We have this place of tenderness and nourishment within. So the deeper our compassion, stronger it becomes, and the more concentrated we become, it then itself sets the stage for the deepest liberation that Buddhism offers or points to. And that is when the mind is really peaceful, at ease, settled on itself, then the experience that there can be insight into the nature of things, including the insight into the nature of compassion. The insight into even compassion is impermanent and inconstant and changing. Even compassion is something that arises out of the constructing forces of the mind and the heart. And there's something that is beyond the constructing forces of the heart and the mind, something which is beyond, outside of, kind of what's inconstant and impermanent. And that which is beyond and outside of it is not a thing, but it's the absence of all clinging, the absence of all self-preoccupation, such a radical absence that it really gets our attention. And really, wow, it's possible, it really is possible after all, to experience, to live this life without any clinging attachment whatsoever. It's a phenomenal thing to know that. And that freedom from clinging itself clears the dust, in a sense, from our hearts, from the windows of our hearts, that now it's so much easier to have compassion. It's so much easier to have love, because there's no smudges, there's no dust, there's nothing in the way of that tenderness, that warmth being touched by the world, and the heart touching the world. And so we find that there's a whole new level of what compassion can be after some really deep letting go that happens. So compassion can be part of the path to letting go, because it really is supportive and helps us relax, and can be very compelling to really kind of settle into this strong sense of compassion. And then it can also then be the stepping stone for a deep releasing that goes on. And for the Buddha then, once a person has experienced deep release, and then their heart is open and compassion is awoken in a greater way, then the Buddha's instructions is go forth out into the world for the welfare of humans and gods, for the welfare and happiness of all beings. In other words, live caring for this world. Live for the welfare of the world. And not because we should, I feel it's because that's what the heart wants to do. And that acting on the compassion is an extremely important thing to do. To not act on our compassion impulses is a kind of restriction, is a kind of closing down, is a kind of diminishing, or even sometimes even a kind of a wounding of ourselves. That if we have an impulse for compassion, act on it. It's a feedback loop there too, that the more we act on compassion, and this pure compassion as we can, the more the compassion then feeds back to us and supports us. And just the idea of compassion and the thought that I am compassionate, just that only the meditation on compassion, it really shortchanges us. It's in the enactment of compassion that compassion really comes to fulfillment, to completion. So, and sometimes the practice of compassion is to practice acting as if you have compassion, knowing very well you're acting as if. But sometimes acting as if evokes and wakens up and clears the space for an innate capacity for compassion to grow and develop and and catch up to what we're actually acting out. So the Brahmavihara of compassion, one of the great gifts and treasures of this tradition of practice of the Buddhism. And may it be that you treasure whatever capacity for compassion, karuna, that you have hints of, that you have touched into. Treasure it, value it, make room for it. May it have a strong place in your life, and may you benefit from that. And may you benefit all beings from that. Thank you.